Thank you, Navalji. First of all, I would like to congratulate the team BVSS Bangalore, which has come up and set up this program. And I would also congratulate Navalji for this idea and the implementation in such a nice manner. My good wishes to my co-panelist Shri Mohandas Pai ji, Shri Ramesh, Professor Ramesh ji, our good friend BVSS President Shri Rohit Vaswani ji, and our respected Shri Subhash Agarwal ji, and Bangalore team particularly. I have been closely working with GV Krishna ji and Chetan ji and other team, those who have joined, and all the fellow professionals and other those who have joined through Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and many different Facebook online connections. This is a very important topic today, and many of the things are in the public domain. And there are not, it does not require a very detailed analysis of what is the current situation. It is more important that I cover what is the government thinking and what is the roadmap way forward that we would like to talk about, so that it will become more enlightened discussions, and we will come out with certain good suggestions. One thing that I would like to clarify is that many people are thinking that this disengagement with China began after this Galwan crisis. I would like to say that this disengagement with China began very early. It started practically from when we refused to sign the RCEP in November this 2019 last year. The Prime Minister categorically said that we will not sign a regional comprehensive economic partnership because it hurts Indian interest manufacturing sector. That was the starting point. In spite of all the pressure from Chinese side, even many of the economists domestically and trade businesses were also pressurizing government to go for RCEP. But Prime Minister chose to disengage from China with RCEP. That was the first step. Then at the same time, the FTA free trade agreements were also started to be renegotiated with the ASEAN countries, because from 2010 we signed this FTA. It Our manufacturing sector was not established enough to be open and thrown open to this kind of competition which we started facing from free duty free imports. So government thought that the FTA have to be renegotiated, and this zero custom duty, which is creating an inverted duty structure in manufacturing chains, has to be corrected. First, we have to strengthen our domestic industry, make them competitive, create level playing field, etc. Then only we can throw open to this kind of competition of inverted duty structure which is being created. Then the third came with the budget this year, where many import duties were increased. I will just give two, three examples. One was the toys. It was the import duty was increased from 20% to 60%, and in eight categories, around 56 items, there was huge increase in the import duties, which were not considered as an strategic and essential imports, but were being imported from China and other countries with a very low duty structures, and they were dumping it because of many things that we understand. So those who think that the disengagement with China started with the current crisis is not the correct thing. It started in RCEP. Second thing that I would like to mention as a backgrounder is that in 2016, our economic survey pointed out to the missing link about the manufacturing sector's loss of focus in our economic policy. Since independence, our focus was not there on the manufacturing sector, and which is an important factor to give employment to large number of population. And our contribution of the manufacturing sector to the GDP was also very less. So in 2016, our economic survey said that we have to focus on manufacturing sector. So the whole thing has to be linked with that philosophy where we started in 2016, that our manufacturing domestic manufacturing sector has to be strengthened. It has to create We have to create an transparent ecosystem where there is level playing field, all factors of productions which are at a very high cost in India, considering regional areas or globally, have to be brought in competition to the world economy. Unless that happens, our manufacturing sector will not grow. And we targeted that we will create a ecosystem where our manufacturing sector, where almost 60% is from the MSME and small entrepreneurship, etc. They should its contribution to GDP should increase from 15 to 25%. Then only our economy will create ample employment opportunities, and the population which is over dependent on agriculture with underemployment and disguised employment can have an opportunity to move to the manufacturing sector. So that was the third important factor that I would want to put on. The fourth issue that I would like to mention is that Atmanirbhar Bharat concept came after this COVID crisis started. And to fight that COVID crisis, Prime Minister Modi ji said that we should move to the Atmanirbhar Bharat concept and Abhiyan that he started. And the thing that I would like to mention here is there is a difference between Atmanirbhar Bharat and Swadeshi concept. Swadeshi is a product-based concept. The government thinks that it can only come through the mass movement. But at the government level, at the policy level, we have to create a 360-degree environment where our domestic manufacturing becomes globally competitive, integrates into the global and regional supply chain, and in the on the way, we as a mass movement, a public movement, we have to create an awareness about that. As Gandhi ji said, that Swadeshi means using more and more local available products, etc., and the local supply chain which the Prime Minister talked about in the Atmanirbhar Bharat. That as a people we have seen the importance of domestic kirana store or local suppliers, etc. So as a mass movement, we have to depend upon local supply chain, but as a policy level, at the government level, we have to integrate into the regional and global supply chain, create competition for our manufacturing sector, and make it competitive in the global arena. For that, the Prime Minister put out 5 pillars of economic development, and those are important for all of us. I'll just mention them. We all know them. They were economy, infrastructure, technology, demography, and demand. On these pillars of economic development, Prime Minister wanted our economy to become self-sufficient, Atmanirbhar, and it's a larger concept that we work on it. And for achieving those pillars of economy, he talked about factors of production. That's the most important part, that providing money, immediate relief through the COVID crisis to the vulnerable section or poor section or the needy section or the real rural sector was an important part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. But at the same time, over a period of 6 months to 3 years to 5 years concept, we have to focus our energy at the government level on factors of production. When we had a long discussion, which Mr. Pai also joined me, where the government wanted us to give feedback on what should be the roadmap for over 3 years to 6 years to 5 years to 6 months. We were asked to focus only on factors of production where economy can go over a period of time. So the Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar Bharat focus is on land reforms, labor reforms, legislative reforms, and creating liquidity. These four important factors of production will make our manufacturing sectors competitive. They are if you compare at the global level, these are cost of these factors is quite high in the India. Unless we reduce those costs and unless we make ease of doing business important parameter for our domestic manufacturers, we will not be able to achieve a global economic superpower status. And in that only, what came as an opportunity within this challenge of COVID was that the risk diversion strategy that we call, everybody has been talking about, is many countries across the globe thought that the China over dependence on manufacturing supply chains fulfillment on China is can be a dangerous concept, and we should move to other countries. And this other country, the best suitable country for this shift in the manufacturing of the global MNCs, etc., is can be an opportunity for India, and that is the risk diversion strategy that we have to work on. But it will not come automatically. Government knows that simply talking will not create that system. We have to work on that, and therefore, through these factors of production, uh, some important areas which we are concentrating are contract enforcement is a very important area, where whether it is an global arbitration center, establishment of global arbitration center, or district court or commercial courts, or a force majeure. Many of the initiatives, if you see in this announcement or other announcement, you will see that contract enforcement is our priority. Unless that happens, global manufacturing factors will not come into, and Indian manufacturers cannot integrate into the global supply chain. Second, on the infrastructure is very important. Our logistic cost is quite high in India, and we have targeted that by 2022, our logistic cost contribution to the GDP, which is about 14%, have to be brought down to 10%, and that will create a cost effectiveness of our products. So ease of doing business will also be strengthened through infrastructure like road, railways, airways, etc. That was the focus. And MSME is our focus. If you see currently, major schemes of support in current structure, anything which is required through the for the support of MSME, the finance minister and the prime minister immediately take step, whether it is about the ready wala, patri wala, or anybody those requiring credit. And we have seen good result. If you see current reports in the newspapers, MSME sector through credit guarantee, etc., is finding good support from the credit offtake also from the banks, etc. There is a risk aversion on the banking system that has to be tackled, and including into that MSME is individual structure also. That is also being worked about. Today also there is a report. Finance minister yesterday said that we will include in the MSME individual and proprietorship concerns also, which are working under the MSME but taking loan in the form of individual entity only. So there is one thing on the financial sector. What I think is that we need certain instruments of capital formation as a roadmap way forward in India. Earlier, the growth was being fueled through catalyzed through the bank financing. But in the bank financing, what I find is that what happens is that in case of failure of any businesses, the cost of that failure is borne even in within the IBC and NCLT scenario also. If there is a business failure, the cost have to be borne by the financial institution or lender. And if there is a successful venture, then the benefit goes to only promoter. So certain we need certain instruments of private capital formation, and funding of this seed capital, etc. So there our government is working what instruments we can go where we can provide funding for the capital infusion, etc. In addition to debt, that is important area. Debt market needs to be more made robust, and venture capital systems in startup and other things are to be focused about. So we need certain good reforms in the financial sector. We all are associated with the financial sector. We can discuss in detail in our ensuing issues. On the logistic, I have told. On the Chinese, what at present current scenario, what I think is that the Chinese investment, we are at a good, though there is a challenge of fighting Chinese, I call imperialism over integration of Chinese product into our economy. But the thing is that most of the Chinese products are into non-strategic sector, and there is a good opportunity for our manufacturing sector to grow in this area. Areas like toys, electrical equipment, electronics, minerals, chemicals, iron and steel, plastic, furniture, sports goods, musical instrument, fertilizers, app services, etc. These are areas where India has good competence, and they can become the sunrise sector for our manufacturing. There is nothing that China has special abilities. We cannot develop those abilities here. But slowly and slowly, due to cost of factors of production, we have lost into the Chinese market or indirect subsidy, etc. But if government has taken care, note of these sunrise sectors, these areas where we can easily combat Chinese intrusion, and we can manufacture domestically, even if they are not available for the short time, there is nothing very big cost to the Indian economy. They are not very essential for many things. So I think these areas in Indian manufacturing can regain their lost ground and come out with manufacturing facilities. These are the areas which we should be focused. And on the further areas which can come as a good thing for our growth and V-shaped recovery are which can come out as a good contributor to our GDP is agriculture is showing good sign of recovery. Our rural economy is showing good recovery, either because of the good monsoon. One thing, lot of migration labor have moved back to their hometown places, native places, and government huge focus on liquidity infusion into the agriculture sector, migration labor, and rural economy through Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, etc., direct benefit transfer, etc. So demand is coming from there. That agriculture sector growth, which is showing a sign of around 4%, it has good ample opportunity for us, our economy to grow. Textile is another thing. Automobile sector is seeing the growth, and affordable housing is one area where we need to focus. Government is focusing on area where which can generate employment also, and it can create demand for the many of the industrial product like iron, steel, cement, etc. And health and education, the welfare status of our government should, there has been a low focus on health and education spent from the state and central government. We have to spend more. So agriculture, textile, automobile, affordable housing, healthcare, and education, these six areas contribution to GDP is low. If we can increase them, we have ample scope for our economy GDP to grow. These are the important areas. I think the Prime Minister, currently our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, has a very bold decision making power. He takes bold decisions, and he implements them thoroughly with proper targeted driven approach and accountability and collective responsibility. Some of the examples are very much clear to all of us through Atmanirbhar Bharat. Also, I would just like to flag them out is that the government thought that privatization of railways is an important area. Government has gone ahead with it. So, in spite of many thinking that there will be strong opposition to these things, but the government Prime Minister thought it to be right decision, so he has taken the decision. Even PSU disinvestment is a issue where lot of debate can happen, but economy requires that many of the areas non-strategic sector areas, PSUs are not doing wonderfully for the government, and they should be disinvested. Government has planned to go ahead with it. Reducing corporate tax was a bold decision. Many were telling that the government will shy away from this kind of decision, but the Prime Minister has taken that decision. And even coal mining privatization, we were importing so much of coal in spite of large reserves of coal in India. So the Prime Minister takes bold decisions. He does not shy from the narration that sometimes opposition want to create. What I would like to say from these kind of discussions and from the people, professional peoples involved in these activities, is that we should create a right narration in economic sphere. What happens is sometimes sentiments and popular statements without any proper information on the economic aspect create a narration, and in democracy that affects the government decision making. So people who know economics, people who understand economics, people professionally qualified to talk about, should create economic narration which is in favor of the right choice by the government, because economics is always a choice, and selecting an option. There are certain options which create certain hindrances in other areas, but ultimately you have to choose one thing. As you see in the petroleum prices, government has taken a stand that we need resources, we need to increase the excise and service tax. It's a wise decision. That now at present, if you want to care for the poor and needy, you need to infuse direct fund transfers. So this is an area where there is a scope for collection of taxes. So government is going for it. The government is looking into all the aspects, taking strong decisions, and I think this kind of debates and discussions help into our understanding of the issues. And I would like my other panelists here to hear from other panelists and take the discussions further. With this opening keynote remark, I would like to rest myself at this point and thank Nawalji for giving me this opportunity, and all of you for patiently hearing me. Thank you very much.